The day the Council witnessed humanity's predator mode awaken, fully the peaceful facade, a gathering of civilizations. The crystal Nexus station floated in the void between star systems, like a jewel suspended in darkness. Its transparent walls caught the light of distant suns and scattered it into rainbows that danced across the great assembly chamber. For 300 years, this station had served as the heart of the Galactic Harmony Assembly, a place where conflicts were resolved through words rather than weapons. Captain Sarah Chen stood near the observation window, watching as delegates from 100 worlds took their seats in the circular chamber. She wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, her dark hair pulled back in a practical bun. Nothing about her appearance suggested danger or threat. That was exactly how humanity wanted it. Beside her, Commander Marcus Webb adjusted his collar for the third time. To the aliens around them, he appeared to be a nervous military liaison, someone who handled logistics and paperwork. They had no idea that he had spent 20 years designing humanity's hidden defense network across the galaxy. Dr. Amara Ose joined them, her warm smile putting nearby delegates at ease. She carried a tablet filled with cultural studies and anthropological data. The aliens saw a scholar who wanted to understand them better. They did not see the strategic analyst who had mapped every major civilization's strengths and weaknesses. The assembly session began with the usual ceremonial greetings. Vexthar, the assembly leader, rose from his seat at the chamber's center. He was a luminar, a being of pure crystallized light that shifted through colors as he spoke. His species had evolved on a world with no predators, where cooperation was the only path to survival. Sarah watched him with polite attention, knowing that Vexthar genuinely believed violence was a primitive impulse that all species eventually outgrew. The Luminars had built their civilization on this belief, and they assumed every other advanced species shared their peaceful nature. The routine discussions proceeded smoothly. Trade disputes were mediated. Cultural exchange programs were approved. Research collaborations were celebrated. Everything was calm and civilized, exactly as it had been for centuries. Then the alarm sounded. It was not a loud sound, just a soft chiming that made every delegate look up at the main display screen surrounding the chamber. Red text began scrolling across multiple languages and formats so every species could understand the message. Priority distress signal received from New Terra colony. Multiple casualties reported. Unknown hostile force attacking civilian population. Immediate assistance required. Sarah felt her heart rate increase, but her expression remained calm. She glanced at Marcus, whose face showed only mild concern. Amara continued taking notes as if nothing had changed. They had trained for this moment, practiced hiding their reactions until they knew more. Vexthar's colors shifted to troubled purple and orange. New Terra colony is a human settlement in the outer reaches. Ambassador Chen, do you have any information about this situation? Sarah stepped forward, moving to the central platform where everyone could see her. We have received the same distress signal. I am trying to establish direct communication with the colony now. She touched her wrist device, activating what appeared to be a standard communication link. The main screens flickered and changed to show footage from New Terra. The assembly chamber fell silent as they watched, the images streaming from the colony. Buildings were burning. People were running through streets trying to reach emergency shelters, and everywhere there were the creatures. The Cravathi had come to New Terra. They looked like massive insects, each one the size of a ground transport vehicle. Their bodies were covered in black armor plating that seemed to absorb light. Multiple limbs ending in razor-sharp claws tore through walls and barricades. Their eyeless heads contained circular mouths filled with rotating teeth designed to consume any organic matter they encountered. But what made the Cravathi truly terrifying was their nature. They were not just predators. They were a parasitic swarm species that traveled from world to world, consuming everything living before moving on to the next planet. They did not build civilizations or create art or seek knowledge. They only fed and reproduced and spread. How many colonists are on New Terra? Asked Council Member Thriss, a spider-like being whose species had never known warfare. 50,000 human civilians, Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the horror unfolding on the screens. Mostly families, agricultural workers and their children, scientists studying the local ecosystem, teachers, doctors, engineers building a peaceful community. The footage showed a Cravathi warrior smashing through the wall of what appeared to be a school. Small human children scattered in terror, their screams silent on the video feed but easy to imagine. Sarah watched one child trip and fall, saw the creature move toward the helpless youngster. Then a human adult, probably a teacher, threw themselves between the child and the monster. The footage cut away before showing what happened next, but everyone in the chamber understood. "We must respond with our standard protocols," Vexthar announced, his colors shifting to determined blue. "We will send a diplomatic envoy to establish communication with these creatures. Surely they can be reasoned with." Sarah turned to look at him, and for just a moment something showed in her eyes, something old and cold and dangerous. But she controlled it, burying the predator instinct that wanted to snarl at his naivety. "Council leader, with respect, the Cravathi do not communicate in ways we understand. They have no diplomatic traditions. They are a swarm species operating on pure survival instinct. All species can communicate," Vexthar insisted gently. "We have successfully established dialogue with every civilization we have encountered. Violence is never the only answer." Marcus Webb spoke up for the first time, his voice carefully neutral. "How long will it take to organize a diplomatic envoy and transport them to New Terra? Following proper protocols, we must assemble a qualified team, prepare appropriate cultural materials, arrange transport with suitable accommodations," Vexthar calculated aloud. "Approximately 14 days, Sarah repeated slowly. "And in those 14 days, what happens to the 50,000 humans on New Terra?" The chamber fell silent. On the screens, more footage showed the Cravathi systematically moving through the colony. They were not random or chaotic in their attack. They moved with purpose, sealing off escape routes, herding populations into concentrated areas, preparing for efficient consumption. "We will work as quickly as possible," Council member Zorath offered. Her species, the Aquarians, lived in underwater cities and had never experienced land-based warfare. "Perhaps we can expedite the timeline to 10 days. Sarah looked at the footage again. She saw a group of human colonists making a desperate stand at a barricade, using farming tools and construction equipment as weapons. They were brave and determined, but they were civilians fighting creatures evolved for nothing but killing. As she watched, the barricade was overrun. She touched her wrist device again, this time pressing a sequence that looked like a simple communication function. To anyone watching, she appeared to be sending a status update to Earth's government. In reality, she had just activated a signal that had been prepared for years, waiting for the moment when humanity could no longer hide what they truly were. The signal went out across the galaxy, reaching every human ship, every human station, every human settlement in space. It was a simple message encoded in ways that only humans would recognize. Apex rising. Authorization Chen Alpha 7. All units respond. On the chamber screens, the footage from New Terra continued to show the systematic destruction of a peaceful colony. But Sarah Chen was no longer watching the screens. She was counting seconds in her head, calculating distances and travel times, knowing that across the galaxy, the facade humanity had maintained for decades was about to shatter. Because humans had learned something during their millions of years, fighting for survival on Earth. Sometimes, the only way to protect the peaceful was to unleash something that was anything but peaceful. Sometimes civilization needed guardians who remembered how to be uncivilized. The Galactic Harmony Assembly was about to learn what happened when you threatened the children of apex predators who had been pretending to be prey. And the lesson was going to be written in the blood of the Cravathi swarm. The mask falls. Away in the 72 hours after, Sarah Chen activated the Apex Rising protocol. The Galactic Harmony Assembly began to understand that they had been living with a predator species, disguised as peaceful farmers and artists. The revelation came not through words or explanations, but through observations that made every peaceful species in the galaxy question everything they thought they knew about their human neighbors. It started with the ships. The first sign appeared on the long range scanners of the Crystal Nexus station. A cargo vessel called the Prairie Wind had been scheduled to deliver agricultural supplies to a mining colony in the Helion sector. According to all official records, it was a simple transport with basic defensive shields and no weapons beyond point defense systems for meteor deflection. But when the Prairie Wind received Sarah's signal, something changed. Station sensors detected massive power fluctuations from the supposedly harmless cargo ship. Then the vessel's hull began to reconfigure. Panels that had appeared to be simple cargo containers folded away to reveal missile batteries. What looked like communication arrays rotated to show themselves as targeting systems. The ship's gentle curved design shifted into aggressive angles optimized for combat maneuvers. In less than 5 minutes, the Prairie Wind transformed from a cargo hauler into a warship that carried more firepower than most planetary defense fleets, and it was not alone. Across the galaxy, every human vessel received the same signal and underwent the same transformation. Passenger liners became troop carriers. Research ships revealed hidden fighter bays. Even small personal yachts opened concealed weapon systems. In total, more than 200 human vessels began converging on a single destination. They were all heading toward New Terra. Council leader Vexthar stood in the command center of Crystal Nexus Station, his crystalline form flickering between colors of confusion and concern. Around him, alien military analysts were frantically trying to understand what they were witnessing. "This is impossible," muttered General Cathros, a veteran warrior from the Skorath species. His people had the most advanced military in the Assembly, but even they had never seen anything like this. "How did they hide these capabilities?" "Our inspections should have detected any weapon systems." Dr. Amara Osei, who had remained on the station after Sarah departed for Earth, stepped forward to explain. Her warm, scholarly demeanor had not changed, but now the aliens were looking at her differently, wondering what else she might be hiding. "Humans are very good at pattern recognition and deception," she said calmly. "We evolved these skills over millions of years. Every human ship was designed with modular systems that could serve civilian or military purposes. Your inspectors saw cargo containers because that is what they were until we needed them to be something else. But your species joined the assembly under the banner of peace." Vexthar protested, his colors showing deep purple confusion. "You signed treaties promising non-aggression." Amara nodded patiently. "And we have never broken those treaties. We have never attacked a member species or their allies. But the treaties also include provisions for self-defense and protection of civilian populations. The Cravathi are not assembly members. They are an existential threat to all biological life." On the main display screens, tactical data showed the human fleet's approach to New Terra. The analyst had expected a chaotic rush, desperate ships racing to save their people. Instead, they were witnessing something that looked like the movements of a single organism with 200 bodies. The human ships moved in perfect coordination, adjusting their trajectories with split-second timing to maintain formation. They communicated through encrypted channels that the Assembly's best code breakers could not penetrate. Every vessel knew exactly where every other vessel would be at every moment. It was pack-hunting behavior, refined and perfected across 300,000 years of human evolution, now applied to warfare in the vacuum of space. Commander Marcus Webb had left the station aboard one of the first ships to respond. Now his face appeared on the communication screen, speaking to all Assembly observers. He no longer looked like a nervous logistics officer. His expression was hard and focused, the face of someone who had trained for this moment their entire career. "This is Fleet Commander Webb to all units. Current status report shows Cravathi forces have penetrated 70% of New Terra colony. Estimated civilian population still alive is 38,000. Rescue window is closing rapidly. We are implementing Operation Shepherd's Guard." The alien observers watched as the human fleet split into 3 distinct groups. The first group, the largest, established a defensive perimeter around the entire planet. Their weapons locked onto any Cravathi ship attempting to escape or call for reinforcements. Nothing would leave this system alive except humans and any other refugees they could save. The second group moved into low orbit, positioning themselves directly above the colony. These ships carried the most advanced sensor systems, mapping every building, every street, every tunnel where colonists might be hiding. They built a complete picture of the battlefield in real time, sharing that information instantly with every other human asset. The third group descended through the atmosphere like drops of fire. These were the assault transports carrying ground forces directly into combat zones. But they were not just dropping soldiers into a war zone. They were executing a rescue operation with surgical precision. The Assembly observers watched in amazement as human tactics unfolded. One transport landed near a collapsed shopping center where sensors detected trapped colonists. Before the Cravathi could respond, human soldiers had secured the perimeter, extracted the survivors, and lifted back into orbit. The entire operation took 90 seconds. Another transport targeted a school where 300 children were barricaded with their teachers. The Cravathi were preparing to breach the building's final defenses. Human forces hit them from 4 directions simultaneously, catching the creatures in a crossfire that eliminated the threat in seconds. The children were evacuated before some of them even realized rescue had arrived. "This is not how we fight wars," General Cathros muttered, studying the tactical displays with professional interest despite his shock. "They are not trying to defeat the enemy army. They are systematically removing civilians from the battlefield, while simultaneously destroying any threat to those civilians. That is because humans do not think of this as war," Amara explained quietly. "They think of it as protecting their pack. Every human down there is someone's child, someone's parent, someone's family. The soldiers know this. They are not fighting for territory or resources. They are fighting for people they consider part of their extended family." On the screens, more rescue operations unfolded with the same ruthless efficiency. A human strike team infiltrated a Cravathi hive structure to extract colonists who had been captured for later consumption. The soldiers moved through the alien structure like ghosts, eliminating guards with silent weapons, guiding survivors through pre-planned escape routes. But it was not just the military precision that shocked the alien observers. It was the way humans fought when circumstances required direct combat. A group of Cravathi warriors ambushed one of the rescue teams in a narrow canyon. The creatures had numerical advantage and defensive positions. By all tactical analysis, the humans should have retreated and called for support. Instead, something else happened. The human soldiers did not panic or fall back. They moved with coordinated fury that seemed almost choreographed. Some provided covering fire while others flanked the enemy position. They used the terrain with instinctive understanding, finding cover and firing angles that the Cravathi had not anticipated. Within minutes, the ambush had been reversed. The predators had become prey, and the human team was moving forward again with barely a pause. "Look at how they communicate," one of the alien analysts pointed out, highlighting the audio feed from the battle. "They barely speak, but they understand each other perfectly. Watch that soldier on the left. He makes a hand gesture and the entire team changes formation without a single word." It was true. The human soldiers communicated through a combination of technology, hand signals, and something deeper that the aliens struggled to understand. It was the same instinct that had allowed human hunters to coordinate attacks on woolly mammoths tens of thousands of years ago. The same pack mentality that made humanity such a successful cooperative species. But the most shocking moment came when the Cravathi Queen ship entered the system. It was massive, 10 times larger than any human vessel, carrying thousands of warrior drones and equipped with organic weapons that could devastate entire fleets. The Queen ship was the heart of the swarm, the reproducing center that created new Cravathi. Destroying it would end the threat permanently, but getting close enough to do so should have been suicide. The human fleet did not hesitate. Fleet Commander Webb's voice remained calm as he issued orders. "All units implement Apex Protocol. Target is the Queen ship. No mercy, no retreat. We end this now." The human ships moved as one, converging on the massive alien vessel from multiple vectors. The Cravathi unleashed devastating firepower, destroying 3 human ships in the opening seconds of the engagement. But the humans kept coming, their smaller vessels darting between the Queen ship's weapons like predators nipping at a much larger prey animal. Then, the assembly observers saw something that would be discussed in military academies for generations to come. The human ships were not just attacking randomly. They were coordinating their strikes to target specific weak points on the Queen ship's organic hull, places where the structure was vulnerable to concentrated fire. Each ship's attack opened the way for the next, creating a cascade of damage that the Cravathi could not repair fast enough. It was pack hunting in its purest form. Wear down the larger prey through coordinated attacks, strike the vulnerable points, never give the target a chance to recover, and finish it with overwhelming force at the moment of maximum weakness. The Queen ship tried to escape, but human vessels cut off every route. It tried to call for reinforcement, but human jammers blocked every transmission. In the end, surrounded and wounded by 1,000 strikes, the massive alien vessel died like any cornered prey animal fighting desperately until the final blow ended its existence. The explosion lit up the void like a new sun, scattering debris across space. But the human fleet was already moving, pursuing the remaining Cravathi ships with relentless determination. Every single alien vessel in the system was hunted down and destroyed. Every warrior drone on the planet's surface was eliminated. The swarm that had threatened to consume New Terra was utterly annihilated, and it had taken the humans less than 18 hours from the moment their fleet arrived. In the command center of Crystal Nexus Station, the alien observers sat in stunned silence. They had just watched a species they thought was peaceful and civilized completely destroy an enemy force that should have been unstoppable. They had witnessed tactics and coordination that surpassed anything in their military doctrines. Most importantly, they had seen humanity's true nature revealed in full. General Cathros finally broke the silence. "We have been living alongside apex predators and we never knew it. They smiled at us, shared meals with us, taught our children, and we never saw the hunters underneath the friendly masks." Dr. Amara Osi nodded slowly. "Now you understand what humans really are. We are the species that survived on a world so dangerous that natural selection created predators capable of hunting anything. We are the descendants of ancestors who learned to work together because cooperation was the only way to bring down prey stronger and faster than ourselves. We are pack hunters who evolved intelligence, compassion, and civilization, but never forgot the instincts that kept us alive." On the screens, human ships were landing on New Terra's surface, delivering medical supplies and beginning reconstruction efforts. Soldiers who had been killing Cravathi minutes earlier were now helping injured colonists and playing with frightened children. The same hands that held weapons were now distributing food and water. "That is what makes humans truly dangerous," Amara continued. "We can be savage when we need to protect our family, and gentle when caring for those we have saved. We understand both peace and war, both mercy and ruthlessness. We are predators who chose to be civilized, but never forgot how to hunt." The Assembly was about to learn a new lesson about the balance of power in the galaxy, and humanity was about to step into a role they had been preparing for since the first time they looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. The age of peaceful diplomacy was not ending, but it would now be protected by guardians who knew that sometimes the only answer to predators was bigger, smarter predators who fought for something greater than themselves. Guardians of the Galaxy. The emergency session of the Galactic Harmony Assembly convened 3 days after the Battle of New Terra, as it was already being called throughout the galaxy. The chamber was more crowded than usual, with every member species sending their highest-ranking representatives. They had come to discuss the human question, and everyone knew that the decision made here would reshape the balance of power for centuries to come. Captain Sarah Chen stood once again at the central platform, but now the aliens looked at her differently. They saw the same simple blue uniform, the same calm professional demeanor, but now they understood what lay beneath. They had watched recordings of the battle dozens of times, analyzing every human tactic, every coordinated move, every moment of savage efficiency. Council leader Vexthar's crystalline form shifted through colors more rapidly than usual, betraying his emotional turbulence. "Ambassador Chen," he began formally, "the Assembly requires an explanation. Your species has maintained hidden military capabilities in violation of transparency protocols. You have deceived this body for decades." Sarah did not look apologetic or defensive. She looked like someone who had made difficult decisions and would make them again if necessary. "Council leader, with respect, we have violated no protocols. Every human ship that underwent inspection showed exactly what we claimed it showed. The technology to reconfigure civilian systems for military use was never hidden. It simply was not asked about. We answered every question truthfully. We just did not volunteer information that was not requested." A clever lawyer's argument, commented Councilmember Wraith, a spider-like being whose species specialized in contract law. "But it does not address the fundamental issue. You presented yourselves as peaceful, non-threatening, suitable for integration into our community. Now we discover you are among the most dangerous species in known space. Marcus Webb, now officially recognized as fleet commander rather than a simple liaison, stepped forward. Are we dangerous? Yes. We evolved as apex predators on a world where everything was trying to kill us. But dangerous to whom? Show me one instance where humanity has threatened a peaceful species. Show me one time we have used our military strength against innocent civilians. Show me any evidence that we are a threat to this assembly." The chamber fell silent. Despite their fear and shock, none of the alien delegates could point to any aggressive act by humanity. Humans had been model members of the assembly for decades. They traded fairly, shared technology openly, participated enthusiastically in cultural exchanges, and resolved disputes through negotiation. The only beings who had experienced human violence were the Cravathi, and no one mourned their destruction. Dr. Amara Osei accessed the main display screens, bringing up images from New Terra. The footage showed human soldiers rescuing alien refugees who had been living on the colony. There were Aquarian researchers, Skorath merchants, even a small community of Luminars who had come to study human agricultural techniques. The humans had saved them all, treating them with the same urgency and care as their own species. "This is who we are," Amara said softly but clearly. "We are capable of extraordinary violence when protecting those we care about. But we define our family broadly. Every civilian on New Terra received the same protection, regardless of species." The human soldiers did not distinguish between human children and alien children. They saved everyone they could reach. General Cathras stood, his armored form imposing even among the diverse assembly. His species, the Skorath, had the strongest military tradition in the assembly, and his opinion carried significant weight. "I have studied the battle recordings extensively," he announced. "The human tactics display sophistication beyond anything in our military doctrines. Their coordination, their strategic thinking, their ability to adapt to changing battlefield conditions, all of it surpasses what we believed possible." He paused, his multiple eyes fixing on Sarah. "But what struck me most was their restraint. At several points during the battle, human forces had opportunities to use devastating weapons that would have destroyed large sections of the colony, along with the Cravathi forces. They chose not to use those weapons because civilians were present. They accepted higher risks to their own soldiers rather than endangering non-combatants." "That restraint is what defines us," Sarah replied. "We are predators, yes. We evolved to hunt and kill. But we also evolved consciousness, morality, and the ability to choose who we protect and who we fight. Being capable of violence does not mean being controlled by violent impulses." Council member Thris, whose species had never known warfare, spoke in her soft, multi-tonal voice. "Yet you prepared for war while claiming to seek peace. You built hidden weapons while signing peace treaties. How can we trust species that lives behind such deception?" Marcus answered that question. "Because the deception protected you as much as it protected us. If we had arrived in the galaxy openly displaying our military strength, how would you have reacted? You would have feared us, kept us isolated, perhaps even tried to preemptively neutralize the threat we represented by presenting ourselves as peaceful. We gave you time to know us, to see that our values aligned with yours, to understand that we want the same things you want." "And what do you want?" Vexthar asked. "Peace," Sarah said simply. "We want to build, create, explore, and learn. We want our children to grow up in a galaxy where they are safe and free. We want to cooperate with other species, share discoveries, create beauty together. But we also want to ensure that predators like the Cravathi cannot destroy everything we build. We want to protect the innocent, and we are willing to be dangerous to accomplish that." The chamber erupted in discussion as delegates debated among themselves. Some species saw humanity as saviors who had eliminated a threat the assembly could never have defeated through diplomacy. Others saw humans as dangerous wildcards who had proven they could not be controlled or predicted. All of them understood that the galaxy had changed fundamentally in the past 3 days. Vexthar called for order, his crystalline form glowing brightly. "The assembly must make a decision. Do we accept humanity's role as protectors, or do we demand they dismantle their military capabilities and submit to strict oversight?" Before anyone could respond, the chamber's communication system activated with an emergency priority signal. A new message was coming through, originating from the outer reaches where pirate activity had been increasing for years. The aliens watched as a desperate plea for help played on the screens. A mining colony was under attack by raiders. 3,000 civilians were trapped with no military protection. The colony's defensive shields were failing. They had perhaps 6 hours before the raiders broke through and began looting, killing, and taking slaves. The message included one additional detail. Among the 3,000 civilians, fewer than 50 were human. The rest were Aquarians, Luminars, Skorath, and a dozen other species. Sarah turned to look at Vexthar, and in that moment, the assembly leader saw the choice laid out clearly before him. Humanity could help, but would they? Would these predators fight for species that were not their own pack? Or had all the talk of protection and guardianship been just another form of deception? Sarah activated her wrist communicator. Fleet Command, this is Ambassador Chen. We have a priority emergency. Colony under attack. 3,000 civilians in immediate danger. How many ships can we divert? Marcus was already checking tactical displays. The Prairie Wind and 7 other vessels are within response range. They can arrive in 4 hours. Sarah did not hesitate. Authorize immediate deployment. Full combat authority. Save everyone you can. The alien delegates watched as 8 human ships changed course, racing toward a colony where they had no strategic interests, no resources to protect, no advantage to gain. They were going simply because people needed help and humans had the capability to provide it. Council member Zorath, an Aquarian whose species had members on the threatened colony, rose with tears streaming down her water-permeable skin. You are sending your warriors to save my people. Why? Sarah looked at her with genuine confusion, as if the question made no sense. Because they are in danger and we can help. What other reason do we need? In that moment, the character of humanity was revealed more clearly than any speech or explanation could have accomplished. These were predators who had evolved not just to hunt but to protect their pack. And they had decided that their pack included every innocent being in the galaxy. The vote was called, and despite lingering fears and concerns, the result was overwhelming. The Assembly formally recognized humanity's right to maintain military forces and conduct defensive operations throughout galactic space. More than that, they requested that humans establish a formal guardian fleet to respond to threats that peaceful species could not handle alone. Sarah accepted the responsibility with quiet dignity, knowing that humanity had just accepted a burden that would define them for generations to come. They would be the sheepdogs protecting the flock, the predators who hunted other predators, the warriors who fought so others could live in peace. Over the following months, the galaxy learned to adjust to this new reality. Pirate activity dropped by 90% as raiders learned that attacking any colony might bring human ships down on their heads. Slave trading routes dried up as humans hunted down the networks with relentless efficiency. Systems that had lived in fear for decades suddenly found themselves protected by guardians who asked nothing in return except the trust to do their job. Not everyone was happy with the arrangement. Some species still feared humanity's power and worried about what would happen if humans ever decided to use that power for conquest rather than protection. But even the skeptics had to admit that the galaxy was safer with humans standing guard. Sarah Chen eventually left her position as ambassador to become the first supreme commander of the Guardian Fleet. She never forgot the weight of responsibility that came with humanity's power, never stopped questioning whether they were making the right choices, never allowed herself to become comfortable with the violence they sometimes had to employ. One evening, standing on the observation deck of her flagship, she looked out at the stars and thought about the journey humanity had taken, from a single world where they fought for survival among predators, to a civilization that explored the galaxy, to guardians protecting species across 1,000 systems. Commander Marcus Webb found her there, lost in thought. Having doubts? He asked quietly. Sarah shook her head. No doubts, just reflections. We were predators hiding among prey, hoping they would never discover what we truly were. Now we are predators who chose to protect the prey, to use our strength for something greater than ourselves. I think our ancestors would be proud. The ones who hunted mammoths with wooden spears? Marcus smiled. Especially them, Sarah replied. They survived by working together, by protecting their families, by being smart enough to overcome enemies stronger than themselves. We are doing the same thing, just on a galactic scale. Far below them, A human patrol ship was escorting a convoy of merchant vessels through a region known for pirate activity. The merchants were Luminars, Aquarians, and Skorath traders who had learned to trust their human protectors. They traveled safely because they knew that if danger appeared, humans would be there to stand between them and harm. This was the new order in the galaxy. The age of peaceful diplomacy continued, but now it was safeguarded by warriors who understood both the cost of violence and the necessity of strength. The Galactic Harmony Assembly had learned that sometimes the best way to preserve peace was to ensure that those who threatened. It knew there would be consequences, and humanity had learned that being apex predators did not mean being alone at the top. It meant being strong enough to protect those who could not protect themselves, wise enough to show restraint, and compassionate enough to see every innocent being as part of the family worth fighting for. The Council had witnessed humanity's predator mode awaken fully, and instead of destroying the galaxy, it had saved it. Because the most dangerous predators were not those who killed without reason, but those who knew exactly when and why to fight, and who fought not for conquest or glory, but for something infinitely more powerful. They fought for family, and their family included everyone who needed protection. In the end, that was what made humanity truly extraordinary, not their weapons or their tactics or their predatory instincts, but their choice to use all of that power in service of peace. They were the guardians the galaxy never knew it needed, and the protectors that every innocent being could trust. The predator mode had awakened, and the galaxy was safer for it.